Hello my friends, I'm Victoria. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today is the day I'm going to go over all of my October reads and do a wrap up for you all. I read a lot in October. I read in total 25 books, graphic novels, short stories. It's a mix of all of them. 7 short stories and 1 graphic novel, and then the rest were books. I had a really solid reading month. I had multiple 5 stars. Some of the short stories were actually 5 stars, which was shocking to me. Even the graphic novel. So I really lucked out with this month. And for it being October, I honestly didn't read as much horror as I thought I would. I still read a lot of like spooky stuff, but a lot of like wholesome, cozy stuff too. It was kind of the perfect mix of reading for me for the fall spooky season, and I just had a really good one. I can't wait to go over these with you all. I'm gonna give a brief synopsis and my review. I'm gonna try to keep them short and sweet since there are so many, and I'm gonna go in the order from worst to best, just in star rating. But yeah, let's get started. So first off, we have our 2-star reads. Now, I only had one, and it was a short story. So like my biggest flop was just an easy short story read, and I feel truly #blessed because of that, because what are the chances? The only one I didn't really love was something short and didn't take up a lot of my time. We love that. So that is In Bloom by Paul Tremblay. This is part of the Kindle and Audible Creature Feature collection. Now, I'm not gonna go deep into any of these short stories from the collection. I did read all 6 of them in the month of October, and I have a reading blog up with all of those, and I go more in depth about it. But this is a creature feature about a creature in the water off of Cape Cod. I just didn't think it was scary at all, and we have a lot of elements here that were kind of unnecessary, like a plot point we start hearing from a journalist and then from someone else that she's interviewing, and then our journalist is talking about her relationship, and there were just a lot of aspects that I'm like, why is this even in here? So yeah, that one was a flop for me, and that was my only 2 stars. Okay, now on to the 3 stars. First up, we have Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. The synopsis says that it's about a vampire that's a real estate agent, and she's trying to sell a house, but the house has a ghost, and it's making it hard for her to sell the house. And she is trying to figure out what happened to this ghost so that the ghost can go on and cross over. Well, it's not that at all. At all. And I think that's why I didn't love it so much. I'm sure that a lot of people that really love fantasy would enjoy this a lot. It just wasn't quite up my alley. And we have a lot of characters from like the underworld and like death characters. We have like ghosts, vampires, like Dracula even like makes an appearance in here. We have like the devil, we have angels, we have all kinds of different characters within that realm. And it's really about like death itself. He's trying to keep his power, and then we have all these other people within the undead world trying to take his power away from them and then become the master of death themselves. It just wasn't successful for me. We have some irreverent humor, like they don't take each other very like the characters don't take themselves very seriously, which is fun, and I enjoyed that. We're building up to these games, and these games are basically like gambling against death, and people are trying to beat death so that they can now become the master of death. And there's a ton of buildup with these games, and once the games happen, like it's barely part of it. Like nothing even really happens. It moves through it so fast, and I was very disappointed by that. And then the whole haunting aspect, like I was really interested in the vampire real estate agent and then this haunted house and like figuring out this ghost. And really that's just not a huge part of the book. So if it was like the synopsis, I probably would have loved it, but it wasn't. So, you know, you can't win them all. I thought it was still good. I just didn't love it, and I expected something different. The next 3-star is Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. So this is kind of like a sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas, but we're following Sally instead of Jack. And there were quite a few aspects I enjoyed about this. Like we have Sally, she's just gotten married to Jack, and she's kind of coming into her role as like Pumpkin Queen, and she's kind of having a hard time, and she ends up going through this new door, and shenanigans start to happen, things start to go down. It is kind of interesting because I feel like if you enjoy Nightmare Before Christmas, you have always wondered what's behind these other doors. Like even though We know that they are like holiday-based towns. I think we all like wondered and would love to see what's behind those doors. And it does give you some of that, which I enjoyed. But the writing just wasn't great. It's definitely made for kids, so I get it. If you have kids, I would definitely recommend it around spooky season. It was just a simple, okay book. And there was actually a bit of a twist with Sally that I thought was pretty good. So I was like, okay, that's unique, and I didn't see that coming. So I enjoyed that, but overall, it was just fine. The next 3-star is I Feed Her to the Beast, and the Beast is Me by Jamison Shea. Now, I recently had this in a reading vlog, and I was so anticipating this one, and I still liked it. I gave it 3 stars, but it wasn't my favorite thing. I was a bit conflicted about it. But we have our main character who is a ballerina, and she has been studying at a ballet school in Paris. And she is Black, and she is struggling with getting the recognition that she deserves a lot, and her race has a lot to do with it because she is top of her class in school. But once she graduates and tries to go and get contracted by a dancing company, it's been hard. But then this other dancer brings her into the catacombs in Paris and is like, here's a demon. Make a deal with them. You can make any kind of deal. And she does. And she makes a deal about power. And she makes this deal with the devil. And it helps her kind of get the acclaim that she wants. And there's also kind of an underlying commentary that even though after you make this deal and you have all these things come to you, like you can't make everyone love you. And then you also just can't change the way you feel about yourself a lot of the times, like a self-worth discovery kind of thing. If you aren't feeling it, you can't change that, and you can't make other people feel that way about you if you don't feel it yourself. You know what I mean? It's definitely more of like a lit horror. It is YA, and the beginning was very good. There's a lot of dance talk. We have like a lot of like catty competition going on, and I know a lot of people might hate that. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fascinating. But as it went on and into like the second half, there was for sure a pacing issue. The timelines were like really confusing. We would shoot like 10 months into the future, and I was just like, okay, well, what's going on? And then I also just feel like this had the opportunity to really go to a scary place, and I just felt like it was holding back the whole time, and I wanted to just be like, go there, you can do it. You know what I mean? But it just never got there for me. And I still think that this is a good option, especially if you have danced in the past or have been in like a competition type scenario. I feel like you would like this. It also definitely has Black Swan vibes, so if you're a fan of that movie, but it wasn't my favorite thing. I didn't hate it. I just expected a lot more. The next 3-star is Black Sheep. I'm sorry about the lighting. I totally skipped this one and now it's later, so I'm having to go back and film it. But the next 3-star is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I know this is another huge one on a lot of people's lists. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. The first half I loved. This is about a character named Vesper, and she pretty much immediately left home once she was old enough to leave, and her family are very staunchly religious, and that's why she left. She's kind of just been trying to get by. She lives in New York City now, and she waits tables, and she ends up getting this random invitation for a wedding, and it's her cousin's wedding, and she ends up going home. And once she does go home, things start to ensue and things start to happen. It does start to go down. There is a twist at like the 30% point where we learn something about her family where I was like, love that. Did not expect that. And the first half I thought was great. We get some really good like satire here and commentary on like religious, like extreme religious groups, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was super clever. But the second half takes a bit of a downturn, and I struggled in the second half. I really did. But I feel like the second half was almost like watching Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like so many things aligned. I just felt like the second half was not really original, and I could have called every single thing that ended up happening. So I was just disappointed in it. The pacing also felt weird because at the beginning we're getting like a lot of stuff happening right off the bat. We have her at this restaurant and this really like weird scene there that I loved. Then her getting the letter, her going home and finding out about this family and this wedding. And then once that change happens, I feel like the pacing was just kind of not there. I was a little bit bored. And it just didn't hit for me. So yeah, overall, I still thought it was fine, just not my favorite. The next 3-star is The September House by Carissa Orlando. This one I was highly anticipating. I think a lot of people were, and It was a bit of a disappointment for me. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, but we have the story of this woman who is living in this house, and the house is haunted. She bought her dream home, and she and her husband are just living with the fact that there are ghosts here and this house is haunted. She's like, I don't care, I'll just learn to live with them, it'll be fine, costs too much to move, the market sucks. First, 50% of this book was a total slam dunk for me. I loved it. I thought it was really irreverent and funny, and I just really enjoyed how they were like, well, we'll just live with these ghosts, it'll be fine. Like, we have a house, it's our dream home, you know, there's just ghosts here, and it's a little scary, and the walls bleed, like, whatever. And I thought that was hilarious and really unique, especially in the haunted house space. It was like a totally unique take there. And I love haunted house books, so I'm always looking for like something new. So I really love that part of it. But then it just gets really repetitive. Like the next 30-ish% or so, I was just like, okay, we've already been through this. Like, it was almost like the same thing happening over and over again. And the twists were very easily callable. I could tell those things happening very early on, especially, you know, towards the end what happened. So wasn't surprised there, a little bit disappointed in that area. I didn't hate it, it was good, but I wish that the second half lived up to the first half. Totally could have been a 5-star for me, but it just wasn't. Now we're on to my 3.5 stars, and first up we have Hex Education by Maureen Kilmer. Now I do want to say right off the bat, if you hate romance and you want like a cozy, spooky book, here you go. I absolutely love the fact that there is no romance subplot in here. I mean, it's a rarity and I applaud it and I love that about it. So if you're looking for like a spooky, witchy read that's not romance, there you go. This is a really good one and I had a fun time with it. So this book, we are following 3 witches. After they're grown up, they have kids and they have careers now. But when they were in college, they accidentally burned down their dorm while doing a spell. And it's been a tragedy of this university for many years. And then we have this podcaster who shows up and she is interviewing and trying to figure out what actually happened with this fire because it's suspicious and like no one really knows the truth to what caused it. And so our 3 witches, they are getting together, trying to make sure that this podcaster does not figure out their secret and let it out. This book is not super unique, it's pretty standard, it's cozy, it's not super stressful, but honestly at times it's exactly what you want and need. And when I read it, I was very happy with it. I was like, this is good, this is exactly what I wanted. I didn't have to think a lot, and I just love that we had a witchy book with no romance. So it wasn't the best thing in the world, but I still had a really good time with it and I would recommend it to you. My next 3.5 star is Brother by Anya Alborn. I know, I'm sure some of y'all are shocked by this, but I don't know if it was just hearing so much about this book and how amazing it was, and then it just like not living up to the hype for me. But this book is about a family in Appalachia and they are serial killers and they mostly kill like hitchhikers, but sometimes they will, you know, kind of stalk women and sometimes men too, but stalk them, get to know them, and then bring them home to murder them. And then we have this one kid in the family who's like, he doesn't want to do this anymore. He doesn't want to murder people. He just wants to leave town and leave all this behind. Honestly, feel like the horror aspect isn't there a ton. Like, it definitely is horror, but I didn't get a ton of scariness from it. It's definitely more of like a commentary and like a coming of age kind of thing in a way. But I kept hearing about this amazing twist, and I think that's what really bothered me about this book, was the twist was very obvious to me. I was reading this and I thought this was kind of like an easily like assumable thing. And as I was reading and it kept going on, I thought that there would be a twist, like another twist. But that never happened. And then I was just like, okay, well, what was the big twist? And then I was like, okay, well, I guess it's what I had already just thought of. I felt like it was pretty obvious. And for me, that just really bummed me out. Usually I'm okay with guessing the twist, but I think it was just like with this one, everyone was like, the twist is crazy. This is the wildest thing you've ever read. And I did not get that. I don't know, I don't think I would put this into extreme horror at all, but I know a lot of people do recommend it as a intro to extreme horror. I would honestly recommend this almost just as an intro to horror at all, like period. So I didn't think it was super wild. There are some, there definitely is like subject matter here that might shock people, but overall, I was pretty disappointed with the ending and the twist. I really enjoyed the first half. I love the setup of these characters. We have some really interesting ones in here, and like the relationship building that we have. I do think that some of them, especially in the family, could have had more of an arc that we just don't get, and that's okay. But yeah, overall, I liked it. I definitely enjoyed it. Like 3.5 stars is not bad. I just expected much more, especially with the twist and the ending. So yeah. The next 3.5 star is All Holos by Christopher Golden. I did read this on Halloween weekend because it is based on Halloween night, and I was really hoping for a specific kind of book. This is supposed to be horror, and it is mostly domestic drama. Like we get so much family drama in this and it doesn't stop. This is about a town in like a little area of a suburb where kind of the families are having a hard time. There's all kinds of issues. People are having affairs, people are having money problems and having to move, and you know, kids are trying to figure out who they are and like coming of age for the kids as well. And we just have a lot of like domestic drama stuff going on. And then we have that, and then outside of that we have these weird kids that start showing up, and they are in like these weird old costumes for Halloween, and they end up, and they're like, the cunning man's coming, you gotta watch out for the cunning man. And the rest is like Halloween night, us trying to figure out who's bad, who's the cunning man, running from danger, and just trying to survive, which sounds awesome, doesn't it? That sounds pretty good, but no, it just wasn't that. I still did enjoy it, but I just feel like this could have been so much better too. Up until like the 45% point, it's pretty much strictly family drama. We're being introduced to a ton of characters. Like, I don't know, maybe like 14, like 12 or 14. I can't even remember right off the top of my head. But there were multiple families we're introduced to. The husbands, the wives, the kids, everyone involved. And then we keep like getting introduced to people as time goes on. I'm like, what is happening? How are we at like the 60% point and like we're being introduced to new people? It was too much. But the thing is, the end of this, I absolutely love the end of this. I thought it was very, very good and action-packed. And I did like how the ending wasn't trying to make it everything super happy and just like wrap up with a bow. Like there definitely is some dark stuff that still ends up being dark at the end. So I appreciated that, because with all the drama that had built up to this, I was worried that we were gonna try to like make everything better or back to normal or back before Halloween night. And it doesn't do that. So that's good. But you know, we have these weird kids. We have the cunning man. I don't feel like any of them are fleshed out very well. And I would have liked some backstory. And normally I'm okay with there not being backstory and they're just being like evil in the world in a book and be like, okay, they just exist and they're there, that's fine. But in this one, I feel like we could have really benefited from that, because I was really just like, well, what's going on with the kids? What's going on with the cunning man? Because we never actually know. And I wish we would have cut out some family drama and added in an explanation on what is happening with these kids and the cunning man actually. That would have been great. But there is a bit of good like Halloween atmosphere. We have like decorations, a haunted house, haunted woods, like kids in costumes, that kind of thing. Like if you're looking for a scary Halloween read, I don't think this is it, because I wouldn't say this is really much scary at all, especially the majority of the book. So yeah, just wanted to let you know that. My next 3.5 star was another Halloween read, and that is The Haunted Forest Tour by James A. Moore. Actually, I think this is by two people, James A. Moore and Jeff Strand. This one is about a attraction where you can go and sit in this vehicle and do a tour of this haunted forest. And it's very much like Jurassic Park. You go, you sit in this vehicle, and it just takes you through, and you can see all these creatures. And on Halloween night, they're opening this new section of the attraction and they're going straight through the middle of the woods instead of outside the perimeter, which is where it usually goes. And of course, things go wrong and everyone in this vehicle are running for their lives. We have tons of monsters and creatures in here, which I really enjoyed. Like truly a monster mash, like this has it all. And the start of it was really good. We start off right off the bat with some action. We learned that these woods just like sprouted up overnight and I really enjoyed that. And we have like action right off the bat with them sprouting up and like people trying to run. These trees are like coming in, hurting people, like going right through homes and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's really interesting how this like these woods just popped up and then how it ended up turning into an amusement park. So I really love that part and I really loved it up until probably the halfway point. Like it was almost like 5 stars for me up until the 50% point. And then the second half, it dropped off a bit. I got a bit bored. I feel like there was also a tone issue because there were quite a few bits of it that were campy. And I feel like this book as a whole, like the idea seems very campy and sometimes we would be really serious. We would be moving to these characters that were scientists and, you know, cops and all kinds of stuff. And some would be serious and move to a character where they're like really campy and it kind of got confusing. And then the second half also just kind of got boring because they just keep running from creatures. And, you know, it's one of those things like how long can we run and keep running until we're like, okay, end it. You know what I mean? There was also another issue where they were just describing women really in an annoying way. There was this one character who was obsessed with his coworker that worked at the park. And literally every time he talked about her, it was just like, I want to have sex with her so bad. And like her boobs are amazing. And I'm like, okay, you can mention this like once, like mention her boobs one time. You don't have to mention it multiple times. Or like even better, don't mention it at all. Like it's just really annoying and just takes me out of it. It's pointless. It doesn't add anything to the story. So yeah, it kept happening and wouldn't stop happening. And I was like, at one point I was just like, okay, give me a break, man, come on. But anyway, it was still good. It was still a fun time. It just wasn't perfect. My next 3.5 star was another short story from the Creature Feature collection, and it was Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. I know, I was so excited about this book. Like if you have watched any of my TBRs or like even on my other socials, I was so excited about this book. Like probably when, I mean, it's not even a book, it's a short story, but like once it was announced, I was like, this is my most anticipated read of the year. And I was a little bit bummed, maybe again because I anticipated so much, but I mean, it's a short story. Short stories can be harder. It's essentially about the boogeyman, exactly like what you would think it would be, but we start off, the beginning was really great. Lots of action. The Ankle Snatcher itself is actually very creepy and I enjoyed these characters. And then it spirals into kind of like a, I don't want to say Shawshank, but it goes into like a law crime arena that was just like a bit more boring. And it was just like a weird kind of pacing thing where right off the bat we have all this action and then there's like no action again. And that's okay. It also is definitely way more serious. Like for Grady Hendrix, typically I feel like his books are campy, and this definitely has a serious tone and I like that. But yeah, not my favorite. Didn't hate it. It was fine. So yeah, 3.5 stars. Okay, now we're on to my 4 stars. The first one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I hope I'm saying that correctly. This one, so cozy, so cute, but it's about this witch. She ends up getting this invitation to go pretty much be like a tutor or a nanny to these 3 younger witches and to teach them how to, you know, hone in their craft. And it's very wholesome, super sweet. We have this amazing story of found family, and it just ends up being like a total big hug. I don't think it's super unique or anything like that, but for a cozy, sweet book, yeah, give it a go. This one's very popular too, and I see why. It was a really good time and just like made my soul feel nice. So I don't really have any huge complaints about it other than that it was just a pretty normal standard book. But I highly recommend this. And I also think this is actually really good for Christmas because the buildup is from fall into Christmas and the climax is at like Christmas time. So if you still want like a cozy witchy book to read before end of year, I would definitely pick this up. Next up is a horror thriller called The Stranger Upstairs by Alyssa M. Matlin. I actually did really enjoy this. It is not what the synopsis might make you think it is. The synopsis makes you think that this woman and her husband move into this new old home and they're renovating it, and that she, is posting online her renovation process. She's also a therapist and she's just doing this in her off time. She ends up thinking, is the house haunted? She starts hearing things, weird things start to happen, and stuff goes down. But right off the bat, we learn that our main character, she's not reliable at all. We're like, who are you? Like, we don't know who she is. And same with her husband. Like, they are holding on to some lies and some secrets, and we are also kept in the dark. And I thought that was really unique. And she's definitely mentally not well. And throughout the whole book, you're really just like, who am I trusting right now? Is the house haunted? Is she just imagining this? Are her neighbors out to get her? Are there ghosts? Like, what is the truth? And you do not know who to trust at all the whole time. And I thought that was really successful. Would I say this is a haunted house book? No. I feel like this is majority thriller. And I feel like a lot of people probably have gone into this hoping for a haunted house book and not being that and not enjoying it, which I understand. Like, I hate when synopses are like totally off from what the book is. It really bothers me. But I thought this was really unique, and it does have a bit of a spin on the haunted house trope, and I'm a huge haunted house girly, so I thought that was good. But yeah, like I said, mostly thriller, not a ton of horror, not a ton of haunting. So if you're looking for a traditional haunting, this is not it. But if you want something different with a very unreliable narrator, here you go. Next up is The Stitchers by Lorian Lawrence. This is a YA middle grade horror, but we have these kids and they believe that their neighbors are like vampires or aliens, or something weird is going on with them. They call them the oldies, and our kids are trying to figure out what is actually going on and figure out their mystery. We also get some pretty successfully like creepy scenes, which I was very happy with. And it's very much like The Burbs and Cocoon mixed together. And I am a huge fan of The Burbs, and I love anything that kind of gives me that feel. So this definitely did, and it felt very nostalgic, so I enjoyed that. And the characters were written pretty well. There is, some kind of like childish drama, like BF, like boyfriend-girlfriend drama, that I could have done without. But I mean, it's made for kids, so that's fine. I think this is a really like cozy option, but still has like a bit of a horror spooky element to it. My next 4-star is a short story, and that is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Caw. I actually read Nothing But Blackened Teeth by them previously, and I did not enjoy it, but I gave them another shot with this one, and I really liked it. So I don't want to go too much into what it is. It's kind of also hard to explain, but especially because it's like only 100 pages. But it's essentially like mermaid horror. We have these mermaids, and then there's this feminist story at the core of this, and I just loved it so much. And it's pretty much kind of like a retelling of The Little Mermaid, but made scary. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. We get some really good world building here, which makes no sense in 100 pages. I don't know how that happened, and I am highly impressed with that. If you don't enjoy like pretentious writing or like people like going out of their way to use certain words and things like that, you might be bothered by this book. It definitely happens here. I know that it is translated, like I'm pretty sure it is translated, because oftentimes I'm like, this is pretentious, I don't like this. But with this one, I still really enjoyed it. And I thought it delivered some really good like body horror and gruesomeness, and just the mermaid horror at its core. I was like, what? I need to read more of this, because I really am loving just the idea of that as a whole. So if you have any like mermaid horror books, please put them below. I need to know. My next 4-star is #Thigh Gap by Chandler Morrison. Now, just so you know, this book has like all of the triggers in it, so please read up on that. It is very intense. It is extreme horror, but I really enjoyed this one. I was a little bit nervous about it because it is written by a man, and it is about a woman who is a model and her struggling and fighting an ED and struggling with her body image and body dysmorphia. And it really speaks on those topics so eloquently. As the story went on and this character was making her decisions, I was like, okay, I can see that. I could see how that would happen and how things would spiral in this way. And it felt very real. Our main character, she starts to see things too. So we're kind of also wondering mentally, what's happening? Is she going to survive all this? Is she going to make it out? Is she going to get help? What is going to happen to her? And even though, I mean, she herself is not a good person. Like pretty much everyone in this book absolutely sucks, but that's kind of the point. But still, it's like you're rooting for her and you're wanting her to survive. Just thought this was well written. It encapsulated body dysmorphia horror in a really real way and made sense. So I thought this was a really good one. Definitely not for the faint of heart, but overall a solid read. The next 4-star is another installment in the Creature Feature collection, and that is Big Bad by Chandler Baker. So this one is about a family that lives kind of in a rural area, and there have been mudslides in the area, and it has drawn the wolves out of the woods, and they are hungry. We actually get a good amount of character building in this one, and it keeps you guessing. I was shocked. I did not guess the twist, so I didn't see it coming at all, and that is successful for me and makes me very happy. Every character involved, you're kind of just really guessing who to trust, who is good, who is bad. And overall, I thought it was really clever, and I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was pretty darn good. My next 4-star is another one from that collection, and that is Best of Luck by Jason Mott. Now, this one is about this creature that can suck the luck right out of you and like steal it and take it and give it to someone else. We start off right off the bat with some action. The whole thing is like someone holding a gun on someone else. So it really builds that tension and the twist, and what ends up happening, solid. And I just thought this whole premise was really unique. I did have a comment that mentioned that there is something that Stephen King wrote that was in the same arena, and I hadn't heard of that before, so maybe I should check that out. But I thought it was really different, and I had a good time with it, and it was kind of creepy, so all good for me. The next 4-star is Rouge by Mona Awad. I know this was highly anticipated by like pretty much everyone in the horror community, including myself, and I actually really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people aren't loving this one, but I thought this was really good. It is beauty horror, which I have found out that I absolutely freaking love. This one we have our main character who ends up going to California to attend her mother's funeral, and her mother passed away in like some mysterious circumstances. And at the funeral, she meets this woman in red, and we learn more about this strange spa experience. And it seems like there's ties to her mother's death in this spa. And there's tons of commentary about beauty standards, aging, being a woman that I really enjoyed. And we get a ton of like mother-daughter relationship in here, like backstory. Our main character wasn't super close with her mom, and we do find out why, but then her struggling with the grief of losing her mother, but then while not having a very close relationship with her, and like her grappling with that fact. And she ends up staying at her mom's house. She puts on these shoes and she gets transported into this weird, ethereal, dreamlike, fever dream-esque state. The spa and their skincare procedures have something to do with this. And there's lots of layers here. There's lots going on. It definitely gets a bit weird. A bit weird. It is definitely weird. I think the whole book is pretty weird. So if you like weird girl books, definitely pick this up. But really, my biggest downfall for this was like the 50 to 75% point. I got a bit bored. It gets a bit repetitive, but I did really enjoy the ending and everything that led up to that. And I feel like we had some really good commentary on beauty standards as a whole here. So I really enjoyed that. And overall, 4 stars for me. I thought it was pretty darn good. Next up is Ring Shout by P. Dejele Clark. I believe I'm saying that correctly. I listened to the name multiple times in the audiobook, and I was like, I'm gonna remember this. I'm gonna remember this. And I'm pretty sure I'm saying it right. But this one is kind of like a historical action horror, very different than what I typically read, and I had such a fun time with it. Very interesting because it's historical, and we basically have this group of people battling the KKK, but the KKK are like these weird, spooky, like zombie creatures. It's all about how hate can turn you into a monster, and it like a commentary around that, which I really enjoyed. like I said, action-packed. We have some really interesting characters here that I enjoyed listening to their stories, learning about their families, and just the commentary is phenomenal. In my Goodreads review, I said, this gave historical fantasy horror realness, and I was here for it. And that's true. That's spot on. I was here for it. I had a really good time. Also quite a bit of info and like drama mixed in with the action, which is good. So we had a good balance there. And it's really interesting because I felt like at some points I'm reading a nonfiction, but it's a fantasy. And there were so many elements of it that felt so real that I was like, wow. Yeah, that's spot on. So there are so many amazing things about this book. It's quite short, so I highly recommend it. You should for sure give it a read. Onto my 4.5 stars, and we will start off with The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It's a historical fiction of this community back in the, I want to say 1500s or 1600s. One of those, but they're very staunchly religious and they follow a prophet. Our main character ends up going to the woods and stumbles across some interesting things going on, and then is given a journal, and the journal is actually her mother's, and her mother has been gone for quite some time now. And she's like, wait, does my mom have ties to these witches that everyone is scared of and that everyone talks about burning all the time? And the thing is, this actually gets really dark. Like the atmosphere and just the atmosphere of like the time in the woods and this community as a whole, very good, very solid for like spooky time fall. But it gets dark. The witches are actually scary, and I love that about it. Like they actually do bad stuff, and I just love that it took that turn, because I feel like so many times with witchy books, it's more about like them being good. They're not actually bad, but in this one, they still do bad things and they still hurt people, and I loved it. I thought that was awesome. If you like Slewfoot, I think you would absolutely love this too. It gives that like folky horror feel, which I thoroughly enjoy. So yeah, I definitely recommend this. We have some really good commentary here too, just like on femininity and women's rights and race, which I enjoyed. So yeah, overall a very good time. And really, I would have given it 5 stars, but there is a romance in here that I just did not care for at all. You know me. So that knocked it down a little bit, but overall, I really freaking loved this book. And here we go to my 5 stars, which is actually, now that I'm looking at this, the wildest thing I've ever encountered in my whole entire life, especially since I've been into reading. I've had 6 5 stars. What? And I don't give 5 stars lightly. I don't. I really have to truly love a book and not feel like anything was wrong with it, and that I would like love to read it again, like if I was a person to reread. But yeah, I am kind of shocked. I mean, a few of these, half of them, yeah, 2 are short stories and 1 is a graphic novel. So I guess the 3 actual like novels that were 5 stars, and then the other 3 were like short stories. But still, that's shocking. I'm shocked. I'm appalled. I feel like the luckiest lady in the room. I'm the prettiest girl at the ball. You know, I feel like I won an award. This is amazing. I doubt I will ever reach this point again. I will always and forever be striving for another month where I get 6 5-star reads. What are the chances? Okay, let's start off with the ones that are shorter. So we have the Pram by Joe Hill. So this one is in the Creature Feature Collection too. Again, I have all these in a vlog, so I would definitely go watch that if you're interested in like a more in-depth talking through of these. But the Pram is about this family. They have recently suffered from a miscarriage, which is very sad, and they end up leaving the city, moving to this small community in Maine, and it's a very strange place. There's like this community of religious people, and they kind of live like it's like back in the day, back in time. And we are following the husband's POV, which I enjoyed because usually you don't get that. But he goes back and forth, walks from his house to the market, this little market, and the guy at the market gives him this pram to like carry his groceries back and forth. And something mysterious is going on with this pram, and things start to ensue. It gets spooky. We have a spooky creature, and I loved this so much. If you like Rosemary's Baby, which one of my favorites ever, you will enjoy this. It definitely has those feels. It also has kind of like a like Amityville haunting kind of feel too, because things just keep getting worse, and he keeps getting worse. So definitely recommend. I was obsessed with it. 5 stars, so good. The next one is another one from the Creature Feature Collection. It's the last one in this wrap up. That's all of them. There's only 6, but It Waits in the Woods by Josh Mallerman. And I really like this one too. Oh my gosh. We have the story of these sisters, and they love to film movies like on their phone and make home movies. They're in high school. And one night they're both supposed to go to like the woods to like film, and one of the sisters goes, the other one doesn't show up, and the sister in the woods goes missing. And there's this like urban legend that there is this creature in the woods that like takes people's faces and takes it for themselves. And her sister has been missing for 3 years. She's decided to go into the woods and just kind of see what's out there and do like a backpacking trip. She doesn't believe her sister's out there. She just kind of wants to see, is this creature real? Is everything, you know, a lie? So she goes. We get a very like Blair Witch Project kind of story, which was so good. And she doesn't do anything stupid at all. Like I feel like so many times with like things in the woods, movies too, it's like the characters do the dumbest thing and it drives me wild. So that doesn't happen in here. Good decisions are made. She films a little bit, and I love the creature. I loved how scary it is. Atmosphere is spot on, and it definitely gets creepy. And with this one, I highly recommend the audiobook because whoever is reading this, like, she killed it. She gives the creature this voice that was like super spooky. So highly recommend. And it's so short. You should just read it. The next one is the graphic novel, and that is Pumpkinheads, and that's by Rainbow Rowell. That's the coolest name I've ever heard. This was everything I could have ever wanted. I am obsessed with this, and normally I don't read graphic novels, but maybe I will, because there was something about this that I was just so obsessed with, and it made my heart feel so good. It's a story about these high schoolers that work at a fall festival, and it's the last night that they're working there. It's their senior year, so they won't be working there next year, and it's them really just kind of having like the perfect good night, and they go try all these fall treats and do all these different things and activities, and I loved it. It made me feel so good, and I read it on Halloween, and it was the perfect thing to read. I think it's also perfect for like fall as a whole because it isn't Halloween specific, but I think I'll read this every single year around that time. I loved it that much. It's very short, and the characters are great. I laughed a few times. The atmosphere, the drawings, solid. I just can't recommend this enough. It was so sweet. If you're looking for something cozy and wholesome and maybe just to read one night before bed, do this, read this. I can't recommend it enough. Oh, I'm not used to talking this much. I'm getting hoarse. I'm struggling. Woo! The next 5-star was a huge surprise. Like, I know it's very popular and that people love this one, but I did not anticipate to love it this much. And that is Confessions by Kane Minato. This is so freaking good. So we have the story of this professor. We start off, she's teaching her class, and it's the last day of school, and she kind of is giving this speech about some students within her class, and she believes that a couple of students in her class actually killed her daughter because her daughter recently passed away on school campus, and she lets that story out, and then she drops this bomb on this classroom. And when I tell you, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, she did what? I was like, hold on, what? I was shook to my core. And then things just keep changing and spiraling, and the story just keeps going and going and going, and twist turns, twist changes. I was shocked. And we keep changing POVs and learning more about these characters and how like this act just spiraled and changed all these people's lives. It's a bit of a revenge story too, but oh my gosh. If you like thrillers, read this. I think it is my favorite thriller of all time at this point, which is wild to say. I could not get over this book, and it's very short. I think the audiobook was like 7 hours or something. So yeah, just read it. So good. I have no words. The next 5-star is The Glass Witch by Lindsay Puckett. This is another one that was just like the biggest hug the biggest surprise, I couldn't believe how much I love this book. These characters are so well written. This is about a witch, and she's a little young witch, and she is not very good at being a witch. She's just not, she doesn't feel very talented. And then she ends up having to go stay with her grandma while her mom is off on while her mom has to go out of town to work. Something happens, and because of a legend, they are all stuck in this town together, and they have to like fight to make sure they don't get caught because they are witches and they're like running from witch hunters. This main character is like the cutest, funniest person. She is so smart, but you still get like the whimsy of like a childhood character, and I love that about it. And I felt like everything was really believable, and just I couldn't believe how much I love this book. It was so sweet, so cozy. It's also right around Halloween. They're having like a Halloween pageant, an awesome Halloween spooky time read. I will definitely have it like next year in my like guide for Halloween books because it was just so perfect. This is also perfect to read with kids, and I feel like it's just like a win-win if you do have kids and you can read something along with them and enjoy it too. So yeah, highly recommend. I loved it so much. It's a total 5-star for me. The next 5-star is Never Whistle at Night, and it's an anthology of dark fiction. It is compiled by Shane Hawk, but this is probably the best anthology I've ever read. We have so many solid ones in here that I absolutely loved, and everything in here is written by Indigenous authors, which I just think is amazing. And you know, now it's November, perfect for Native American Heritage Month, and just to find new authors within that space that, you know, you might come to love. So I found so many new authors within this, and there definitely are some stories that are scary, some are just weird, and they all have really great commentary. So I cannot recommend this enough. I am not the biggest anthology person. I'm trying to get more into anthologies, but this was amazing. All these stories were either good or great. So yeah, I don't think I even had any flops within here. So yeah, definitely recommend it. My next 5-star is another beauty horror, and that is Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Wong. Oh my gosh, I love this book. Might be one of my favorites of all time. I am obsessed with it. It's phenomenal. And we have the commentary on beauty standards, consumerism, race, like everything fits in here, and it's written so well, and it puts it into the story so seamlessly that I was shocked. I just couldn't believe how well this was written. But we have this story of this woman who she is a child of immigrants, and you know, her family didn't have a lot of money growing up, but they did know how to play piano, and they ended up teaching piano lessons, and they also taught their daughter, and their daughter actually became kind of like a piano savant, and they put some videos of her online, and they got pretty popular, and she was able to get this scholarship to a very prestigious school in New York, and have like a stipend and all expenses paid for by an anonymous donor. So good for her, but something does end up happening with her parents, and it's an accident that leaves them pretty much needing care 24/7, and it's very sad. Because of the nature of the accident, she stops playing piano, and she ends up getting this job at a very high-end beauty store. They sell products, but they also do procedures, and they're like kind of known as the next level, best of the best, and always having like the most innovative products. She totally buys into the whole like skincare, health, wellness, self-care idea, but not in a good way. And she's taking all these supplements, all these skincare routines and procedures, and she gets to do them for free. So she's like, sure. But things end up spiraling, and everything is not as it seems. And the way that things end up going, and it's kind of like, how far will you go to meet these standards? Holos is the epitome of beauty. How far will you go to reach that? But also like, how much will you give up of yourself to like get what you need to get? And it just nonstop goes to dark places. The horror is absolutely there. Like if you are on the fence about reading Rouge, I would 100,000% read this first. I think this is, well, actually no, because if you read Rouge later, you probably wouldn't like it. I mean, I still really love Rouge, but this was just so phenomenal, and comments on consumerism and beauty standards in the best way I could have imagined. I loved everything about this. I loved the characters. I loved how the story changed and built. And I love how we learn about this company and her family. Like, I cried in this book. So like, especially the scenes with her family, I was in tears. I was so invested in this. I definitely related to like her feeding into like these ideas, like you need these procedures, you need to take all these supplements and all these things. So, oh my gosh, it's so good and I cannot recommend it enough. Also, if you're interested in beauty horror, definitely go read my vlog because I could have talked about these books for forever. Like, especially Rouge and Natural Beauty. I just had so much to say. And yeah, if you're interested in that, I would definitely go give it a watch and see what you think. Okay, friends, that is the end. I actually read more than I initially said because I think how many did I say? 25? I actually read 27 because all the books weren't pulling into Goodreads. It always happens to me. Like when I look at my read books, I don't know if I put the date in wrong for those titles or what, but I didn't see them. I actually went through like my old Libby checkouts and I could see I skipped a couple. So yeah, 27 in total. I can't believe that. Like, who am I? And I even started a new job in mid-October, so that's kind of shocking to me. Now a lot of them were very short, so I don't think I will get anywhere close to that in November. Like, I'm already kind of struggling and I'm also reading a lot of longer things too. Overall, an amazing reading month. I cannot believe how many 5 stars I've had. I am so happy about it, and it's just been a really good spooky season, and I am so thankful to all of you for being here. For those of you that sit and listen to me chat about these books, I love talking about them with you and I really do enjoy it. So yeah, if you have read any of these, I would love to hear what you have to say about them below, because that's the thing about books. Sometimes you'll love something, someone else will hate it, and things, you know, work for different people. So I just feel lucky to have all of you here and to be able to speak with you all. October was a great month and I'm excited about the rest of the year, November, and holiday season too. I have a lot of good videos coming up for that as well. If you like this video, please subscribe and like. That would help me a lot, and I hope to see you here in the future. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a really nice spooky day.